To welcome you to Perth is the West Australian Minister for Housing, the Hon Colin Holt. Colin is a proud West Australian, born and bred in Goomalling, northeast of Perth, also known as the gateway to the Central Wheat Belt. Colin entered Parliament in 2008 and was appointed Minister for Housing in late 2014. Please welcome to the stage the Hon Colin Holt.
Hello everyone, and thank you for letting me come along. And Tony, the milk crate's gone, mate, so I might need to stand up a bit taller as well, but thank you. Can I just please acknowledge Dr. Isaacs for that welcome to country, and I share his view that Western Australia is the greatest state in the nation, but that wouldn't surprise any of you visitors here or anyone in Western Australia either. I'd also like to acknowledge Christian Porter, Honourable Christian Porter, the Federal Minister for Social Services. It's good to have you back in town. And could I just say thank you to Housing Authority executive and staff who don't get thanked too often, I don't think, but I'd like to acknowledge the work that they've done working for the people of Western Australia and for the government, so thank you. It's fantastic to welcome over 800 delegates from around Australia and overseas to Perth. It has been 10 years since Perth has hosted the national conference, and so much has changed in the last decade. We are lucky and challenged to live in this big state. If we were a separate country, and believe me, it has been considered many times in Western Australia, we'd be the 10th largest nation in the world. Western Australia accounts for 33% of the Australian continent and is bigger than the size of Western Europe, 4 times the size of Texas, and 20 times bigger than England. We are one of the most mineral-rich states in the world, and because of this we have a volatile economy. The rapid growth in mining and resources sector in the last decade put significant pressure on the state and demanded the state government step in to increase infrastructure across WA, and this included housing. Perth has now shaken the Dullsville tag to be in the top 10 places to live in the world 3 years in a row. Infrastructure investment continues to deliver better outcomes for Western Australians, and you can see outside the windows of the Convention Centre the progress on Elizabeth Quay. Work on the Perth Stadium has commenced, and we have 3 new hospitals recently opened or soon to be completed. In WA, it's not just the Perth housing market that we focus on. We have 2 very other distinct housing markets, being regional Western Australia and remote Western Australia, each with very different social and economic circumstances that impact affordability and availability of housing. Different approaches are needed for each of these different markets. Our focus on regional Western Australia through royalties for regions means that we've invested over $6.8 billion into more than 3,600 projects and programs over the last 7 years to benefit the people in our regional communities. The government recognises the role that housing play in people's lives. If we look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the basic building blocks of people's lives is shelter, a place to call home, have a roof over our heads, and have a stable environment so they can get a job, feed their family, or participate in education and training. Housing is a fundamental need, and that is well recognised across Australia. While the disadvantaged and people on lower incomes are most severely affected, the lack of rental and purchase opportunities affects a growing range of people, including seniors looking to retire, adult children looking to buy their first home, and I've got a couple of them at my place I'd like to get rid of, and everyday workers who can't afford to rent or buy a home. This is a structural problem in Australia now, and not just a cyclical one. Unless we act on a number of fronts, key workers on low incomes, who are the backbone of our economy, will never be homeowners unless they are lucky enough to inherit one. And they won't move where jobs are unless there are affordable rental options to go to. And as our recent experience in the Pilbara shows us, that's definitely the case. Housing can be an economic enabler, but it can also be an economic handbrake if there's nowhere affordable for key workers to live. Cities and towns need affordable housing to function effectively and to be productive. And there's the social dimension as well. What happens to other areas of government expenditure and people's lives when there isn't a decent social safety net? Children bounce from rentals to rentals, from school to school. Older people age as renters rather than homeowners at the same time as we're trying to encourage more of an ageing in place model and policy. Small businesses, another backbone of our economy and communities, may be hampered if people don't have their own home to use as equity to secure a loan. So there is no longer just a welfare problem. If we don't get this right, then we are affecting a whole range of other social and economic outcomes for people, communities and economies. We recognised this when we came to government in 2008. A multi-sectorial task force was established to examine the problems and potential solutions. And from this, Australia's first affordable housing strategy emerged, which is already delivering great social and economic outcomes, including the delivery of 20,000 homes for about 50,000 people in its first 5 years. Because we have explicitly focused on supply and affordability, this included nearly 14,000 new builds, generating about $6 billion in economic activity and supporting over 30,000 jobs. But as you know and as I know, there is more to be done. In July, we revised our target and announced that we'd go for 30,000 homes by 2020, and we're already well on our way of delivering that goal. A key feature of the strategy is the idea of a housing continuum, and it's come up, which is not the results of the poll that we were looking for a minute ago, which is useful. A key feature of the strategy is the idea of a housing continuum, which includes the whole range of housing options available to people. At one end is crisis accommodation, like shelters and emergency accommodation. In the middle are various types of rental housing, and at the other end is home ownership. The affordable housing challenge encompasses the whole market, and the solutions have to take that broader systemic view. That is why this government and my agency plays a role across the continuum, including entry-level land and housing supply, social housing, affordable rental and help with home ownership. Creating options across the continuum is far more effective than trying to respond to a broad problem with a single solution like social housing. Our ultimate goal is that over time, each person may gradually move along the continuum towards their optimum position, regardless of where they may be. And that social housing remains a strong safety net for the most vulnerable people in our community. A focus on supporting people to move through the continuum can help to build a culture of aspiration. It also enables government to direct its limited resources to those who need it the most. I'm pleased to see that delegates were offered the opportunity yesterday and this morning to see some of our award-winning projects that address the availability of homes across this continuum. From the international award-winning master planned community at Ellenbrook to inner-city transit-aligned developments such as Abode in West Perth and one on Aberdeen, the WA State Government has pushed the boundaries to deliver for key workers, low to middle income earners and those most in need. The critical change in our approach has been to broaden our focus from funding and managing just social housing to also using our land and our partnerships to enable the private market to deliver social and affordable housing within broader housing developments. All the ingredients exist to deliver more housing. We just have to get smarter about who is in the best place to play what role and how approaches that are cost-effective can be scaled up nationally to be an ordinary part of the housing market solutions. Importantly, WA, or indeed no state, can solve the affordability problem alone. We simply do not have the necessary policy and funding levers. We need to work together with the Commonwealth, and it's good to see Christian just walked in for that important point, to develop innovative, large-scale initiatives that help address the causes and supply and affordability problems. Recent examples of the State and Commonwealth working together, including the National Rental Affordability Scheme, illustrates the strong outcomes which can be achieved if we mix all the ingredients at our disposal to come up with new solutions. Efficient forms of long-term finance to support affordable rental and home ownership are desperately needed in this nation. If we don't act, then we condemn a whole section of the community into being long-term renters. Our own Key Start, which is the WA State Government's low deposit lender, and our shared home ownership models, which you will hear about more at this conference, are one approach that we know works. It has done for 25 years. I'm encouraged by the recent comments by the new Federal Treasurer suggesting that affordable housing is one of his priorities, and I'm also looking forward to hearing what the Honourable Christian Porter has to say, who is a West Australian and would agree with me about the great estate, and I'm sure he'll bring his understanding of Western Australia into his portfolios. You will have noticed that the conference theme for this year is opening doors, and this has come from the theme the WA State Government uses for its affordable housing strategy. This is an ideal theme for this event on a number of levels. The speakers and topics are centred around how we can open more doors for Australians, whether it's through social housing, affordable rentals or home ownership. This event is about opening doors to new relationships and new partners, and with over 800 people here, which is a credit to you to travel across the Nullarbor to one of the most isolated states in the world, to be here to share in those connections and to discuss the opportunities for the future. Again, my message to you is that all the levers there exist to be delivered for more housing. We just have to be smarter about who plays what role and who's best placed to deliver it, and how approaches that are cost effective can be scaled up to be a normal, ordinary part of the housing and marketing solutions. And finally, it's about opening the door to our wonderful state, Western Australia. I welcome you on the behalf of the WA State Government, and I look forward to a productive and thought-provoking 2 days. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy the coffee, but I hope you also enjoy our fabulous wines and beer. And as being the Minister for Liquor, I can guarantee they're pretty damn good. But thank you for coming, and I think thank you for your passion that you show to this very important sector. Thank you.